Hello, folks. Hope you're well. Sometimes I find when I vlog that, you know, nothing can happen in weeks and weeks, and then weeks can happen in days. And I tell you what, it has been a ridiculous hour and a ridiculous week or so for me. To start off, this is the second or third time I've attempted to do the vlog today. I think it's the third time, but the first time was just me messing it up and fluffing. The second time though was I was mid vlog and I didn't catch it on camera, but the whole desk caved in. The clamp that holds the monitors in place and the microphone in place, had kind of pushed through the wood, and it just crunched and fell in forward. So here we are, an hour later. I've rebuilt it all. I put some planks of wood across the table. They seem to be doing the job all right. Everything seems a bit higher up, a bit better, and I'm hoping it all sounds fine and it looks fine to me. I mean, I'm not a pro, but it seems okay. I had to move my lamps a little bit, so I'm hoping that's not shut everything off. But yeah, we're back to figuring that out again, I suppose. Now, what I kind of covered off, what I planned to cover off in the vlog, was just the fact that school holidays, we're in full swing now. Emily had a sleepover on Friday night, on Saturday night. Sorry, it went really well. Ollie doesn't get the fact that he doesn't know these people, and they don't really care about what he has to say as much as Emily's old friends used to, because they all knew him from school. But other than that sort of little bit of hiccup where he wanted to get involved, they had a great time. I was expecting to be up all night, but it was fine. Oliver's still playing out with his friends, although they keep winding him up and then complaining when he gets upset, rude, or hits out. And I try to explain to them that it's because they're crowding him, pushing him, being a bit frustrating with him, and they don't seem to get it. So today's had to come in. It was a bit awkward. Went out in the street. I asked him to come in a few times. I counted down from 10. I said he was going to lose his iPad. He didn't care. He ran off. And then I wish I hadn't really done it. I think he was running away from me, telling him he'd lose things. If I'd have just gone out there, I'm living and learning. If I'd have gone out there and just said, come to me, let's have a chat. It's all right. Give me a cuddle. He'd have probably come over. But it was a bit awkward being out there because obviously you forget he's farther away. Everyone's probably hearing me talking to him at the other side of this piece of grass. I shouldn't have done it that way. I just needed to get him in. It was, I was in the middle of work and they asked me to come and talk to him because he was being rude. And I just said to him, look, you probably need to stop playing with him for a bit because they just keep winding him up. And it's all part of learning. I want him to learn, but they do keep winding him up. And the idea is they're supposed to play out front and I can keep an eye on them out the window. But they inevitably go off in there's like this bush that's got this little clearing they can sit in. And I have to keep going out and checking he's in there because I'm just worried. But I mean, they're all right. They do tell us if anyone, they know we need to stay out front. They always tell us if anyone's being a bit silly or anything like that. But yeah, that wasn't great. His teacher rang Friday. I'm just trying to recap the call because I got more to talk about now. The vlog, I mean. His teacher called me on Friday as well to just apologise about the fact that he got excluded. She was kind of like, she said, I'm in two minds as to whether it was deserved. She said he hit another student a couple of times who was winding him up. They tigged him. They broke his Lego toy. They had a bit of a back and forth. The kid, she said there was a point where she had to tell the kid to stop going over to him because he was winding Ollie up. And that kid got in trouble for winding Ollie up. So I was like, okay, that makes me feel a bit better. We actually saw that kid the next day at the pharmacy and Ollie was delighted to see him and they're very happy. But the teacher said to me, I come into school today. It was like end of term and everything. And she'd come in especially on Friday to just talk to me and another parent over the phone for a couple of minutes. We ended up talking for an hour. She was telling me about how next year she'll be the Senko. His new teacher will be involved in the meetings. She said his new teacher is very much like Oliver, which I don't really know what that means. I was trying to read, but I was like, I'm not very good at reading between the lines. So I was like, is she saying he might be autistic? Is she saying, because she didn't say it like, they've got similar interests. She was kind of like, they're very similar people. I think he'll understand Oliver's situation a lot better than most. And I just thought, well, what does that mean? So I am intrigued now because I thought someone said before that their kid was a bit ignored, but I wonder, their kid was a lot quieter. So I said that before. But she said that she thinks Ollie will get on really well with him because he'll be able to connect more. So that's exciting. I talked to her about the fact that we'd obviously had that conversation whereby the LA had said if the new TA doesn't work out, he can find another school. She said, that's cool, that's fine. They've already got the TA obviously coming in one-to-one. They're already paying for that. They're just hoping to get the funding for it, which is interesting. I think I mentioned it before, but I wasn't 100% on the same page with them about that. But they basically said they're already doing it. They just need to obviously get the funding He's actually got two one-to-one TAs, one 2 days a week, one 3 days a week, which is an interesting balance. I don't know why it's gone that way, but that might be how they're affording it. But she said she really doesn't see him needing to leave now. He's really improved since reception year 1, year 2. Every year he's got dramatically better. So she thinks by September he'll probably come back a bit different, and then new teacher, more understanding. For her being his teacher, his Senko, and his deputy head, he's gaining a person, but he's not losing her because she's still going to be the Senko and deputy head. So it's like, like he's gaining an extra ally, whereas before she was 3 in 1. But she was amazing. Really, she is amazing. I said to her, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you fit it all in. Every other teacher's crumbling, and you're doing 3 jobs, and you're doing it so well. I'm really just delighted with how much effort she'd put in for him. So she was just saying, look, she's really in his corner. Didn't feel like it was fair. She said part of the reason it kind of happened was a bit of a misunderstanding as well, in that she said to Oliver, and you've just hit me on the shoulder, and the head heard her say it. So he thought Ollie had hit her, but actually what had happened was, I think he'd like tapped her on the shoulder because he was a bit annoyed, but he hadn't hit. She said he was like a pussycat. It was the weakest hit. She said it was quite weak on the boy as well. He just kind of gives this little slap of just, but normally they'd give him a red slip and 10 minutes to cool down for doing it. But the head kind of had 2 that had been reported. He'd had an altercation with Ollie where Ollie had been throwing stuff, and then he heard that. He was like, look, we got to nip this in the bud. So she did say to the head to remove that from it all, and that didn't count towards his exclusion. But I said to her, to be fair, I had a long chat with the head, and the head had said, look, I just think it's at a point now where too much stuff's kind of occurred, and it's not really going well at the moment. And I was a bit relieved that it happened, so I wasn't going to be against it. I was relieved that we were pulling him out of the situation where each day seemed to be getting worse than the one before. And I think the head was more thinking, if I don't end it now, something worse is going to happen tomorrow, because every day was getting worse than the day before. So it's complicated. And I'm not saying the head said I'm not saying that the teacher said the head was wrong, because that's not what she said. She just said it was more 50-50, and I'm not sure whether it was she was kind of like, I just feel like, we could have probably brought him in and just, it would have been awkward and he might have had worse problems. He was knackered, but she didn't feel too, she was just more sad that that's how the year had ended, I guess. But she definitely didn't say the head shouldn't have done it. She was just saying it kind of looked worse, sounded worse than it was, and I think it just ended up being dealt with that way. So complicated, I know. I'm kind of thinking, just take it. It's done now. I'm not gonna kick up a fuss. So yeah, that was interesting. Now we feel like what's probably going to happen in September is he's probably going to go back, have his TA for a bit, do the review. Ed psychologist comes in, autism outreach comes in, and then they say what he needs is this. They do that. I did say to her by year 7, I'd still like him to be probably moving to another school, because I don't want him going to secondary school here. So she agreed that we'll maybe talk about that as we go along and see how we get on. So then that was the first part of the vlog. I managed to do that 3 minutes quicker than before because I'm rattling through it. Because the big thing I wanted to talk about on the vlog today was how annoying my local doctors are for several reasons. Now, reason number 1, which isn't as big a deal, is the fact that I've been ringing excuse me, ringing my doctor about this cough that I'm coughing at the moment. Funny enough, that when I did the vlog earlier, I was like, I've not been coughing much at all, but I think I've been thinking about it and it's just there. She'd given me some hay fever and antacid stuff that I thought was doing really well, but obviously not, because I'm coughing a lot now. But it's not really helping. It's helping a little bit. I feel a bit better. But she said, how am I doing? I said, look, I'm just really tired all the time. And she said, well, how's your sleep apnea going? And I was like, I don't have sleep apnea, like, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I don't have sleep apnea. And she was like, well, in 2017, you went to a sleep clinic for weeks and, did this stuff and got a device. I was like, yeah. And she said, and they diagnosed you with sleep apnea. And I was like, did they? And she said, yeah, did they not tell you? And I was like, no, I never got a letter. I never got any kind of note telling me that I had that. She said, well, it's in your notes. You've got sleep apnea. You're supposed to sleep. When you get tired like this, you're supposed to put a CPAP mask on, and it will push more air into your face throughout the night, and it will stop you not breathing in your sleep. And I was like, well, she said, have you ever stopped breathing in your sleep? And I said, not that I'm aware of, but I snore from time to time. And Claire sometimes gives me a nudge if she thinks I'm not, or something like that. But it hasn't happened in a while. And she was like, well, yeah, you're supposed to have this mask for a bit. And she was basically reading through what she was like, you have it. it will stop you snoring. It will mean that you're suddenly much more awake in the morning, much more energetic. Your metabolism will pick up. You'll start feeling more human, and then hopefully the benefits of that will start helping you lose weight, sleep better, and so on and so forth. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I spent the past 3 years without a machine, and I was supposed to have one. And I genuinely I go for like blood tests every now and again. I got one due now, actually. I go for my testosterone injections, and I'm always like, why am I so knackered? Like, Claire looks at me going, you've just had 8 hours sleep and you're knackered. And Claire will have like 5 hours, and she's sweeping the floor while doing work, while taking the kids to school, while riding a bike, while juggling. And all, she does so much comparatively, and I just don't get it. So this is a bit of a revelation now. It's a bit of a ridiculous bluebird of a diagnosis out of nowhere. But on the topic of diagnoses, I also had a bit of a moan at her because a couple of months back, a couple of years back, sorry, I had a conversation with Claire, with Kev, with my sister, with a couple of friends. Basically, to not beat around the bush too much, because it's really hard to talk about this, and I'll caveat that I've never wanted to talk about this on the vlog because I didn't want to sound like I was doing it to be a bit bandwagony or to show off or to do a vlog on it or whatever. That's why I've kind of buried it in this one rather than, making it a title or anything like that. Because, it's not like this at all. But when Ollie got his diagnosis, I was like, me and Ollie are incredibly similar people, right? We have, like, when I was his age, I was exactly the same. Exactly the same. I was ridiculous at school. I was ridiculous at secondary school. I was ridiculous at college. At university, I was a nightmare. And as an adult, at work, I'm a bit weird and a bit of a nightmare sometimes. And as you've seen throughout the pandemic, I get really wound up about noises and really wound up about things and fixated on problems and whatever it is. So I think it was Kev originally who said to me, you are absolutely 100% autistic. And I was just like, I don't know that I am. And he was like, I have known you long enough to be able to tell you in no uncertain terms that you are. And I was like, I'm not. So I mentioned it to Claire that day. I was kind of just like, Claire, Kev called me autistic. And she was like, nah, nah. And then I talked to my sister, and my sister was just like, yeah. She just said, "Do you remember?" She always reminds me of a time where I left the room. This isn't a good example in my opinion, but my sister thinks it is. That I left the room, I come back and Claire had taken my chair, and I absolutely had just a tantrum of, like, not in an angry, rude way, but like I couldn't handle the fact she'd taken my chair, and I was like, that's not really a sign. That's a really bad example. If that was the thing I'd gone to a doctor with, they'd just laughed at me and said, "No, you're an idiot, sir." But she laughs at me because of stuff like that. She's like, there's always something like that bothers the heck out of you. And it's exactly how Ollie is. So anyway, I think that's just me being petulant, if anything. But I kept thinking about it then, because my mum used to say stuff like, oh, when you were little, you'd be just lining your toys up in perfect little lines all across the room. And that would be the game I'd play. I'd line everything up. I wouldn't play with them. I'd tidy them into nice little patterns and stuff. And she always thought it was odd, but she just thought, whatever. And then I know that growing up, I was always kind of different from my cousins. I always got upset, always overwhelmed. They always used to say that I just get carried away and cry my eyes out all the time. And birthdays, I was always a bit of a nightmare of just always getting overwhelmed and crying. Like, I don't think there's a single picture of me blowing out a birthday cake about me being in absolute devastation because I've just fallen apart. Every birthday, my choice was to go somewhere or anywhere I wanted, and I'd never ask for anything. I'd get money for my birthday because I never knew what I wanted, and then I would go to Toys R Us and spend hours there trying to pick what I wanted to take home, basically, and I couldn't do it. And that was my birthday routine every year. So I was weird, but I was also, my mates were sat there talking about school and how I was basically one of the naughtiest kids. I mentioned the other week that I was the worst student at least two of the teachers I had teach me ever taught. They were going through, I mentioned this to my friends because something had come up and they'd reminded me of it. And they literally went through about, I want to say 40, 50 stories. Bearing in mind we were only there 5 years, and they were the ones that came to mind for them off the bat, and they were only the ones they were in the same class as me for. They came up with easily 40, 50 stories, and they didn't even get to college where we spent 2 years, and I was a nightmare there as well. So, yeah. Anyway, on to more. I still thought that just means I was an idiot. But then the pandemic started, and I've always hated repetition. I've always hated noises. Kev finds it delightful that if we're driving along and the radio's got ding dong, cut up for too long, it'll wreck me. We were once driving behind an AA van and the lights were going exactly in time with the music, and the two combined, I was like, Kev, you're gonna have to change lanes or turn the radio off or something. I can't handle it. I'm falling apart. You need to stop. You need to. And he was giggling away and he couldn't change lanes, so he just left the radio to torture me. Not knowing it was actually causing me the amount of pain it was, but it was causing me a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. When the kids were little, if they were repeating the same thing over again, I'd be like, stop! I'll do it now. Like I'll be sat there and Ollie will be just making little like noises while he's playing a game, and I'm like, stop it, stop it, stop it, and I'm getting really upset. And Claire's coming going, what's wrong? And I'm like, he's making this noise, it's killing me. And that one's a real big one for me. That over the year with the neighbours, with the noise, with just there was a kid out front playing basketball, going bounce, 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 just stuff like that absolutely overwhelms me. Claire mentioned that I am also always going on about a smell. I'll go in like the utility room and I'm like, it really smells weird in here. And she keeps scrubbing it and washing it, or she'll give me my top and I go to put my top on. I'm like, this smells, that smells there. I don't like it. And I throw it in the wash bin. And she's like, I've literally just washed it. I'm like, it smells funny. I don't want to wear it. I can't get away from the smell. And she smells it. She's like, it smells like cloves. And I'm like, this one smells fine, and she smells them both. And I'm like, they smell. She's going, they smell the same. I'm like, no, I can't wear that one. It smells horrific. And so she started to then think even more. Okay, maybe you're right. And then, as my sister points out, I literally spend all my time playing Pokemon Go 24/7. She was like, you've literally got one obsession. It's Pokemon Go. You're obsessed with it all the time. So with all of this stuff, and there's plenty more. I just don't want this log to take hours. I basically rang the doctor before my holiday, and I said to him, like, I don't want to sound like I'm... Basically, I didn't ring earlier in the pandemic because I didn't want to sound like somebody who was trying to avoid wearing masks, you know, because that was a big thing, wasn't it? Everyone was like, oh, I've got a sunflower and I can't, I don't have to wear one. And obviously, if an autistic person says that, yeah. But if someone just gets one, they're taking the mickey, and that's what happened. So I didn't want to sound like that. So I don't want to do that. Also, the NHS is under a lot of strain, so I didn't want to ring up and just be like, oh, by the way, I've survived 35 years like this, but I desperately need help now. So I left it. But then, 2 months ago, I rang the doctors and just said, look, I'd like to have a chat with you about autism. I said, my son's autistic. I said, I've joined a group on Facebook of local people who are autistic, and we've had a lot of conversations about it. I've given them some of the things, a lot of the stuff they talk about, like earworms, getting songs stuck in their head constantly that are beyond just humming a tune. This was like embedded in my skull. If it goes quiet, it's all I can hear. I was like, that is something I have all the time. We used to share our daily earworms or our weekly earworms and stuff like that in this group. So I'd started to kind of feel like, there's lots of stuff that I'd never really considered that actually adds more weight to it. And I rang the doctor and I spoke to him and I went through it all. And I'm outraged with the response I got. And I know it's going to annoy a lot of people. So again, I held off because I put a complaint in about it. First thing he said to me was no. And I was like, what do you mean no? And he said, autism is something that's diagnosed in children and then they grow out of it. And he was waffling on and I'd stopped listening because I was just like, what? And so he's mid-sentence and I just said, that's not true. And he was like, what's not true? I said, autism is not something that's only diagnosed in children and then they grow out of it. Autism is something you have when you're born till you die. And he was like, no. It's something that children get. And I was like, no, it's something you get for life. I know plenty of autistic adults at all different abilities. I was like, there is definitely, I could find you 100 autistic adults. I was like, Dan Aykroyd, the woman from the Chase. I can't even, now I put myself on the spot. Anyway, and he was like, well, be that as it may. And he was just like, there is no process for diagnosing adults with autism. And I was like, there is, because my friend was referred. I'm in a group where people were referred. And he was just like, well, you can't have a diagnosis. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do then? And I started rattling off some of the things to him. And I said, look, and I took an AQ test. I took one when Ollie was diagnosed. I took one to prove him wrong. And he said, right, well, take this one and send me your results. So he sent me one, which it wasn't the same as the one that Ollie did, but it seemed to have the same sort of questions. The one that Ollie did, the kids one, I'm guessing, I don't know if they're all the same, I'd scored somewhere in the 30s, and 30 was the line. So that had given me a bit of a, but the one he sent me, I scored like 40. And I was telling Kev about this, and I was like, look, I did the test, and I think it came up at 42. And I was like, no, that can't be right. So I redid it, and I was looking at the questions, and I thought, well, that one's the one I'm unsure on. So I tweaked the answer a little bit, not either end of the definitely and definitely not. It was just in the middle, and I tweaked one of them, and it kind of went from like 42 to 38, I think it was. Or I think I tweaked two questions and it dropped to 30. And I was like, even then, 30 was the line still on this test. So I sent it to the doctor thinking, boom, in your face. I've got it now. Chew on that. And he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing with it. So I sent a massive rant to the doctor's surgery, like a 1,500 word essay that I just wrote in a fuss the day after, complaining. And they said, "Oh yeah, we'll deal with him. We'll talk to him and we'll sort it out." Nothing happened for 7-8 weeks, and then on the phone the other day, I basically had a moan at this doctor, the doctor who told me that I haven't been diagnosed with bloody sleep apnea for 3 years when I should have been. And she kind of tried to make excuses for him. She said, well, he might not have meant that. And I'm like, well, that's what he said. I said, all I want is to go and talk to someone who knows about it, because like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, probably. It makes a lot of sense. I'll get on to more reasons in a minute a little bit, but it probably makes some sense because I always have been a bit weird. And I don't mean that in any mean way to anyone. I have been weird. I mean, stuff like this isn't what 30 how old am I? 36-year-old men are into. There's lots of stuff. I mean, they are, but you know what I mean. I'm that's just being geeky, I suppose, in my opinion. But yeah, that again, everything I'm saying seems a bit too broad and imprecise and not very conclusive. But anyway, I spoke to the doctor, and she said, "Look, either way, you can get it." She's like, "Adults are autistic. You can get a diagnosis, but there is nowhere around here that does it." And I'm a bit annoyed because I basically said, "Well, my friend went and got a diagnosis, or he went to he's getting a diagnosis," and I was very much like, your practice told him where to go." And then after I got off the phone with her in a huff, I messaged Kev, and he basically said, no, they referred me to a lady in Cambridge who said it would be £1,500 to get a diagnosis from her. So he hasn't pursued it because of COVID. Basically, COVID hit, and he just thought, I'm not spending £1,500, and he left it at that. And I was like, oh, for God's sakes, Kev. I was planning on taking something he could tell me and just slapping it down on the desk in front of them and saying, there we go, give me an answer. But apparently not. So now, I mean, I'm hoping one of you who's watching might know where I can go and not have to spend that much money. Like, I don't really want to have to spend. I saw somewhere that did it for 600. Someone told me about one, but I'm just like, it's a lot to spend, because there's always a chance they just say, no, you're just an idiot. Like, I'm not saying that they're the same. Again, it's really awkward, isn't it? And I don't want them to just go, yep, here you go, you are. And then I'm like, okay, I spent 600 quid to find that out. What do I do now? But I do want to know, because it is weird. It is an answer then. So I messaged my mum and my sister, and this hopefully this will make you laugh, but I messaged my mum and my sister going, well, I spoke to the doctor about autism and he absolutely shot me down. He was an idiot and he's no help at all. My sister, who I definitely did speak to, was like, oh, that's mad. My mum, who I thought I'd spoken to, went, oh, you think you're autistic? And she had no idea that I was going through this. And she was like, I don't know. She was like, I never really thought about it. And my sister was just going through it then. She sent me, I put my phone down and come back 20 minutes later, and I had a text from my sister going, I'm really sorry. Because it was over, like, I was talking to my mum with her over Facebook Messenger, but her over text. And she was, I'm really sorry. When you load up Facebook Messenger, it's just going to be every single thing. She was like, it's like a character assassination, and I don't want you to think that. I'm just trying to show Mum how she could have, if she'd known, she might have picked up on it earlier. So I loaded up the app, and it was like, in 20 whatever, we went on holiday in France, and I spent the whole, like, every minute of the holiday in a tantrum, begging to go home, begging not to go anywhere. They went to Disneyland, and I stayed back at a caravan. And all I did in the end was sat and read a book, because I was just so, like, uncomfortable there and didn't want to be there. And which also reminds me of, basically we went to America, and after 3 days, on the way there, Ollie was having just meltdowns, tantrums, everything. And when we got there, I just was panic attack after panic attack. And then after 3 or 4 days, we calmed down. And again, I'm just like, it's so obvious now. Claire and I had a massive row at Daytona Beach. It absolutely shamed me for a while how big of a row we had in front of her mum, because I was just having an absolute, like, I, I couldn't handle it. I just fell apart a bit. And part of it was because this is lame, but we'd gone there because it was the line where you could catch this specific Pokemon, and I was struggling to find it. So I was getting wound up about that. But then I think it was such a crap place. We went there and there was nothing to do. And then this like homeless man tried to get money from us, and Oliver tried to have a conversation with him, and that freaked me out. And then we went in this shop that was just really grotty, and one thing after another, I just cascaded into this like absolute hissy fit. And then we were arguing, and Claire was upset, and it took days for us to kind of get over it. And it was a real shadow over the first few days of the holiday. And looking back, I think I was just overwhelmed by the new environment, the heat and everything. My sister went through so many things from growing up, like honestly, a ridiculous amount of stuff that I hadn't remembered. Or my mum was just like, yeah. By the end of the conversation, my mum was like, okay, yeah. She's very laid back. She was very much like, we just thought you were a bit hyperactive, and my sister's like, yeah, but these days that would be something you'd take your kid to a doctor about, and you'd talk to them about. And she was like, I just thought you were a little bit odd. Nick was like, that's my sister, was like, this is the guy who booked a weekend to go and just play Pokemon Go on his own. She wanted me to come visit her, and I was like, I've already bought a ticket to a Pokemon event. And to me, that's like I brought a ticket to an event. But to my sister, it was like he spent the weekend doing that when he could have come and visit her. Not that she minded, she was just lists again. She was like, he's got a special interest almost. That's the best way to put it, isn't it? So my mum's kind of thinking, yeah, I don't know whether she's convinced, but she was more like, okay, like the way my sister basically wrote an essay of reasons. I spoke to Kevin, Anna, and Pab about it before the podcast the other day, and Anna laughed when I said I'd spoken to the doctor. She sort of laughed. I was like, all right, didn't disagree. And then Kev was just like, yep, university, definitely. Since then, definitely. And it's nice having spoken to people about it. And that's why I'm doing this, because it's not about, doing it on the vlog and championing it like this is a thing and I'm trying to get you all to watch my video or anything like that. I just want to put it out there. I don't know what to do now, because it doesn't really, like, it's not a gimmick. I'm not treating it like a something I want, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to look for a badge that says, yay, here's an award, you are one of us. What I want to know is that what that is? Is it when I'm playing a game and I get absolutely sick and dizzy and fall apart? Kev thinks that's me getting overloaded. So he's saying, try and take it easy, limit the amount of information, field of view, that kind of thing, and it might help. When I'm getting absolutely sidelined by repetitive music, is that, or is it something else? When I forget to drink, that was something. I don't drink. Claire comes home from work. Have you had a drink today? No. Yeah, I'm dehydrated as hell. I go to, not to be too graphic, but I go to the toilet and it's like dark brown because I haven't drank in like 20 hours or whatever. I haven't drank since the night before. And that's just because I don't think about it. I don't get cold. I was talking to a friend who was laughing, saying when we were at college and, early sort of 19, 18, I would just go out. It'd be -2 and I'd be in a t-shirt and trousers, and they'd all be freezing cold in coats, and I'd be walking around like it was nothing. I didn't get cold. I don't feel cold. I feel hot. I hate the hot. I was chatting to Emily about not this, just about in general. I think her and Ollie wanted me to go in the garden. I was like, I don't like being in the garden. I don't like being outside. I don't like how it feels. And again, I was just like, God damn it. Every time I say something, every time I try and justify something that I like or feel, I'm like, okay, that's not really normal. They don't think about going outside as something that's a weird thing. There's certain places I like being outside, like Fairy Meadows, but I don't like standing in our garden, really. I'm starting to get better at it. I don't like standing out in lots of other places. I just don't like it. I was trying to explain that to the doctor, who was saying to me, why don't you go for a walk? And I was like, I said, I don't like going somewhere unless I've got a purpose. It's like I don't like getting a present unless it's got a gift or a birthday present and stuff, unless they've got a purpose. I'm not very good at just getting stuff. These things have been very hard for me to get into, and I don't buy anymore. I kind of had a bit of a phase where I like getting them, and then I don't get them anymore, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I will, but I'm always like, they're just going to sit there in the background, and I don't know. I find it difficult. I like getting books because I can read books, and I like getting games because I can play games. But everything else is just, yeah, I find it hard. I don't connect with it very. I don't like buying clothes. I know he was joking, but Andy Barter, bless him, hopefully he's watching, was saying to me the other day, "You wore that T-shirt last week." I only own like 10, and I don't like going clothes shopping. I hate it. I hate getting clothes because clothes never fit right. I've got 10 clothes, 10 tops that I like, and then I've probably got another 20 where I bought them thinking they'll fit like this one does. They don't, so they're just at the bottom of a drawer somewhere. I've got like 4 pairs of jeans I like wearing, and another 6 that I absolutely hate. And if I put them on, I can put them on to look good, like look tidy, but they're so uncomfortable. I hate them, and it takes me ages to find the right fit. And when I've got them, I wear the heck out of them. So Kev used to laugh because I wore walking boots all the time, but they were like the first pair of shoes I'd had in a long time that I just liked wearing. So I wore them until they fell apart. The next pair I got were horrible. So now it just went through another chain. Now I've got a nice blue pair of like pull-on trainers that fit nicely, and I'll just wear them until they combust, and that's just how I roll. So yeah, lots of stuff for you to think about there. This is a long vlog, and I didn't really expect to be dumping all this out at once, but it's it's an interesting one, and I think some of you assumed I was already. Just I feel like from some of the comments. Um, it'd be interesting to see your thoughts. I'm not really fussed either way. If people say yes or no, or I'm not asking for your opinions on whether I am or aren't. I want to know really how I can confirm it one way or another. And it doesn't change much, but I would like to know just because, as I say, it does explain a lot of past. And yeah, I just feel a lot less bothered, a lot less bad about things that I feel like. Not I want an excuse to let me off the hook, but I want to be able to say, okay, I can process that now as that's what that was. Therefore, okay, it makes a bit more sense. Whereas it's kind of like, why was I weird like that? Why did that happen? Why did I do that? I don't understand that. I don't understand a lot of things, and it already is having an impact on helping me thinking about it that way. Because Claire said to me, well, why don't you just, in the meantime, try and take some of the information and act like you are. What would you do differently? And I was like, well, one thing I keep noticing is I think Claire's annoyed at me or serious about something. And it turns out she was actually joking, or it's nothing to do with me. She was just annoyed. But I find it really hard to read how she feels about things. And I explained it to her, and she was like, okay, see, that's already a benefit because I'm assuming she's annoyed at me. So then I start being arsey, or I assume that she's serious. Like, I can't remember what she said the other day. I said something to her, and she was like, yeah. And I felt really bad. And then later on, when I said to her, I felt really, I felt. She was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, you said this about me." And she was like, "I was obviously joking." And I was like, "Well, it didn't sound like it to me." And she was just like, "I was acting." And I was like, "Well." So it's just little things now. I'm questioning every time I've ever thought someone was a jerk, whether I just completely missed it. Especially as I'm somebody who is always a bit cheeky and a bit rude. Like Kev's always rude. It doesn't faze me that Kev's rude because I know he's not serious. But obviously, something he does makes it really clear he's not serious. Whereas some people say something and I'm like, no, not having that. I'm gonna crush you like a bug now. And yeah, I'm just odd. But yeah, lots there. It's a bit of a mad one. Um, you lot were the last people to kind of talk to, other than sort of specific close family, where I just had a chat with them about it. I just thought we'll see how it goes, but I don't plan on making the massive thing of it. Like if someone says to me, "Oh, by the way, if you go to this place, you can get it done for 100 quid, and it will take 6 weeks, and blah blah blah, whatever," or there's an NHS way to do it that I've not heard of, and I go and do it, I'm not going to like draw it out through like Ollie's one was a bit different. Kevin said to me he couldn't document the autism diagnosis process for a child, so he said it'd be good if I did it. It was an idea for a vlog, and so I'd started doing it as a playlist. But for me, it's not what I'm about. It's not what we're here for. I know that I like updating you on Ollie's stuff again because it's useful. Again, because like Kev said, there isn't anything out there that he's done for that, and I can ask him advice, and we can go through stuff and similar audiences because I've basically got a lot of his audience over here. But for me, I'm just thinking, you now know that I am looking at it. It's on my radar. Um, it's a weird feeling to have suddenly gone, okay, that could be it. And it's not a flash in the pan thing that's just happened. As I say, it has been it's been longer than 2 years. It's because I originally did the test when Ollie did his test, and it was a high score. And I think Kev did it as well. I think me, Kev, I got my sister and my parents and Anna and Claire to do it, and me and Kev were in the 30s, and everybody else wasn't. And it was like, right, okay, that's interesting. And I think at that point, Kev had already started his thinking about it off, and we always used to. He'd said to me about it. He was like, "Well, I always said, didn't I?" Because he always used to say we were broken brained at uni. We were the broken brain, not broken brained in a mean way. He was just like we thought differently from everyone else on our course, like markedly differently. And so he was like, "I always knew we were broken brained," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't think that necessarily means what you think it means." And now, yeah, now we're looking at it more. It's like, yeah, okay, I think you're probably right. Um, anyway, I'm going around in circles a bit now, and I always start doubting that I'm talking too much about it. So we're at 30 odd minutes, so yeah. Feedback, please help. Where do I go? Who can I talk to? Because I really like to get this done. I'm so offended by that idiot doctor. The complaint I put in came back saying I can't. The practice told me they'd come back to me and they didn't, so I tried to escalate the complaint. That complaint went to the wrong people, so now I've got to complain to a new lot of people. But I'm so annoyed at that doctor for telling people that adults can't be autistic, because that's going to have harmed a lot of people around here. And that same doctor, like Kev was telling me how that doctor misdiagnosed his mum before she died several times. So he's not got a good track record for the past 15, 20 years, or however long it's been. So yeah, I don't like him, and I feel like he needs dealing with, and I don't really know where to start with that either. But I don't know. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots of stuff that I could go on for another hour talking about all the different reasons why we think it's the case. Um, I don't. Yeah, as I say, I'm not doing this lightly. I'm not doing this for any other reason than I want to talk about it. So yeah, thank you for your time, and I'll catch up with you on what is it? It's Monday, so I'll catch up with you on Wednesday's vlog. It's Tuesday. I'll catch up with you on Thursday's vlog. I've lost track of time as well. Right, okay, cheers, folks. See you soon. Bye.